And we would go out on numerous missions per day. I think I had logged probably 425 flying hours at the time. And, but, you know, these missions entailed firing at people that didn't like to be fired at, and they were firing back at you. And bullets would penetrate the aircraft, and it was kind of a common theme. And so it was a day like any other day. With a 50 caliber, once you go through a gun run and fire, as the pilot, and what we would do is we'd run two ships. We'd run 180 degrees out from each other. So when we were up here watching where they were taking their fire from, when we came down on the next gun run and they were up here, we could fire in the area that they had been receiving fire from. But at the end of each gun run, what all the 50 caliber operators had to do is they had to clear that weapon and throw the last round that was chambered out the window, because the heat alone, if you left it chambered, could fire that round on its own. So very used to, you know, taking that, you know, gloves on, taking that hot round and pitching it out the window as you exited that gun run. And it was one of these gun runs, you know, and what ended up happening is all of a sudden my left knee was really hot. I mean, hot. And what in my weak mind at the time thought that ejected round that I was clearing out at the end of that gun run had came down and slammed into my knee. And so, you know, didn't think much of it until I tried to put some weight on it and realized that, uh-oh. And I saw, you know, a hole on this side and a hole on this side, and I thought, man, I'm gonna go home a gimp, you know. And I had always told my wife that, would you still love me if I came back, you know, wounded or a gimp or whatever, you know, and which at that time I thought, oh no, you know. But anyway, what it was is the 30 caliber bullet had went in this side of my knee, and 3 pieces of the aircraft had went in the left side of the knee. So it was strictly kind of a flesh wound. It didn't take any arteries or bone or anything like that. And the stiffness was that bullet had enough momentum to where it was pushing out the backside of my skin, but it had not enough to go through the leg, you know. And so it was one of those things where I had to tell the pilot, hey, sir, I've been hit, and they landed me at some field hospital out in the middle of, I don't know where I was, but kind of one of those rude awakenings, you know, that shock to reality type of thing, you know. In a climate zone like Vietnam is, they have to leave all the wounds open. They couldn't sew everything up, so I had these 50-cent piece sized wounds that were basically allowed to heal without being stitched up to where you probably wouldn't hardly see an incision or anything. But so it took, you know, 8 or 10 days in the hospital, and then they transferred me to Saigon for the remainder of my time. I think it was a little over a week or something in Saigon. And so I basically, from the hospital, hitchhiked back to Tan Son Nhut Airport, which was the Air Force base, and arranged for transportation back to An Khê, Vietnam. So I get back to the division area thinking that everybody's going to be real glad to see me. And I get back and everybody's head's hanging low and hardly giving me any eye contact, and I'm all enthused about being back with my unit. And finally somebody had to tell me that we had lost one of the aircraft with 8 guys, you know, co-pilot, pilot, flight engineer, and 5 gunners, all got killed immediately, and that they had actually shot themselves down. What we had called the Jesus pin, or the Jesus pin, that strapped the 20-millimeter cannon to the mount. But basically when the pilot fired the 20, it elevated and shot their own forward rotor off. There was only 4 of these aircraft made. One of them in Saigon, before it ever saw any combat with a guy guiding it on the ground, the blade clipped another aircraft and it sat and beat itself to death before it really had served in the combat zone at all. And so there was only 3 of these. When I came into the unit, there was only 3 left. And when they lost the aircraft that went down while I was in the hospital, ironically called Cost of Living was the name of the aircraft. And so anyway, there was only 2 left after that. And they were using the armed Chinooks up in the area that they moved to, up closer to the DMZ, and they shot birth control, the one that I was on. Everybody got out of it, and they were able to save the guys, but before they could come back to sling load the helicopter out of the rice paddy or whatever, the enemy had mortared rounds in and destroyed that helicopter. So that pretty much ended the armed Chinook program with only 1 helicopter left. They were meant to fly in tandem. And, you know, the Apache helicopter, 2 men with a whole bunch of firepower, a lot smaller silhouette, took the place of the armed Chinook. But I was real proud to be a part of that, that short-lived program.